So at times when you are supposed to buy a motorcycle back in the day, you have to go to a showroom or a distributor and you have to book the motorcycle, for which sometimes it takes 1 year or 2 year waiting period to get your motorcycle. So and so that scooters were at that time were on high demand and they were used too much, and for that reason if you book a scooter, a new scooter, not a second hand one, it may take you 9 to 10 years. So it is due to that period when artificially production was limited amongst all automobile sector. So after LPG revolution, motorcycles sold too much, but there were some instances, as I said previous video, that the Jaipur production facility was shut and the AVL engines didn't meant anything else. So again in the part 2 video of the Enfield India Limited. As we all know that Enfield India Limited, or the Royal Enfield Motors, so as to say, is now in the hands of Eicher Motors. Eicher Motors, the manufacturer of commercial vehicles, and nowadays we call as EV Motor Division or EV Motor Corporation, for a reason like they have joint ventured with the Volvo commercial vehicles. So for that it is being termed in that way. So after Eicher came up with merge with Enfield, they started producing newer motorcycles in a way which were technologically, somehow they were not that rich, but when you consider the manufacturing facility and all that, the manufacturing facility was revamped. CNC machines took place instead of those old-fashioned British tooling equipments for which the whole production unit was sustained with. But there were no much of turnabouts so far as the product lineup were concerned. They were all the same cast iron 350cc and 500cc engines. But what happened is these motorcycles took off in the export markets. Somehow many of the problems were addressed. The engine oil leak issue was one of the biggest issue with these Enfield motorcycles, and so as to say, any British motorcycle is very much reminiscent of that problem. So somehow motorcycles were made in that respect, so that a bit of finishing touches has to be made more perfect, and hence the motorcycles were somehow being better made for the export market. So nothing new product lineup was created back in the day. But there were a lot of turmoils. Actually, they had labor strikes and all, for which the production was halted too much, and the units were sold very less. And gradually, even though Eicher took up the market, somehow the motorcycles were not selling in that way as what other Japanese motorcycles were taking up the market. And as in the picture you can see, it's a diesel motorcycle. Basically these diesel engines were brought from the not Crompton, perhaps the Greaves Limited. As you can see, these engines in many of the auto rickshaws what we are observing today, like in Piaggio Ape or in Mahindra Alpha. So basically it's that same 325cc 4-stroke direct injection diesel engine which was just producing at around 7 or 8 horsepower. Torque figures were not of that much. 18 Nm was the maximum, and top speed was around 80 kilometers per hour. It had that same Albion gearbox what it used to be in the cast iron engine blocks. So far as the fuel economy is concerned with these motorcycles, it was touted that it was able to show you up to 80 to 90 kilometers per liter. So of course for such a big long stroke engine, it's one of the biggest USP of getting these engines. But due to Bharat Stage 1 and Bharat Stage 2 emission norms, these motorcycles never took off in that way, and people didn't understand diesel engines much. So for that reason these motorcycles never took off in a way. But still you may see these diesel motorcycles lingering around somewhere, but somehow they are very rare. If you need something about diesel motorcycles, I would rather suggest you to watch a YouTube channel called Kaku Mirganj. So there, that person restores all sorts of diesel Enfield motorcycles there. There was another diesel engine which was an Italian diesel engine. I forgot its name. That diesel engine was somehow a 425 or 427 cc diesel engine, which was actually exported to the foreign markets. So basically, that engine was not for the domestic market at that point of time. It was launched perhaps in 1997 and ended up in 1999. It didn't went so much. So with that respect, Enfield motorcycles were still among the most popular motorcycle with the defense personnel. Police, somehow they were very much keen in buying Enfields, and uh, enthusiasts were, and the purists, to be said about, they were actually purchasing these motorcycles. But in a practical standpoint of view, these motorcycles were still impractical for those common man, for those common people who don't think that these motorcycles are really a need of today's world, as motorcycles like Hero Honda CD100 or Kawasaki 4-stroke engines, they were like 70 kilometers or 80 kilometers per liter. But at the same time, these motorcycles had no way. They were hefty, heavy, and you need specific mechanics to actually rebuild these motorcycles altogether. So in that perspective, these motorcycles never went that much, and it was time to bring up the AVL motorcycle, the AVL, as we all know. So this motorcycle is called the Enfield Lightning 535. It's a 535 cc 4-stroke engine, reboot 500 cc engine, if I so as to say. It had a Mikuni VM32 carburetor, as well as it had that same Albion gearbox. This motorcycle was too exported in the foreign countries like United Kingdom or US. But in United Kingdom, these motorcycles were lot they were sold a lot, because somehow the motorcycle's design was equivalent or reminiscent to that of the Harley Davidson's Sportster series. As you can see, the style of handlebars and the fork and all the things that. So basically, it is the very old Thunderbird 350 or Thunderbird 500 of that era. If I talk about the specs of this engine, 535 cc, 38 Nm of torque, and the horsepower was rated 24 horsepower. So yeah, back in the day, it was one of the most powerful motorcycles, but yet it was the same cast iron engine, but with a different perspective. This motorcycle was somehow advanced amongst the other Enfield motorcycles, as it had a tachometer and a fuel gauge, which was one of the most first in segment within Enfield motorcycles. As I said, AVL engines came into the market from 2002. The motorcycle, what I shown you before, the Lightning 535, ended up its production in 2002. From 2003, the Thunderbird 350cc segment came up with this specific AVL engine. This AVL engine was designed in Austria, and so far as this engine is concerned, you won't be getting any big of a difference when comparing to that of the cast iron engine blocks. AVL is an Austrian company which deals with internal combustion engines, and today the company is functioning with all other alternative fuel achievements and all that. This particular motorcycle came up with CV carburetors first time in the Enfield segment. But somehow, by the time when these things were made up by Enfield, already the Japanese motorcycle manufacturers established the Indian market. They flooded up with their own best motorcycles. For an example, you may have also come across with Yamaha Enticer or the Kawasaki Eliminator. So these motorcycles were easy to use, they were powerful, they were punchier, they were looking more mean, and so far as the maintenance costs were concerned, they were good, they were peppier engines. So it literally took very less amount of maintenance, and they were very manageable if you talk about that, because even today, if you compare a Royal Enfield Thunderbird with that of an Avenger from Bajaj, still Bajaj Avenger is more manageable, and you are getting a big bang for your buck, because after all you are getting a windshield and a rear backrest, which is somehow you are getting a full package of a dressed cruiser. But in case of Royal Enfield, somehow you feel like no, there you need a lot of additions so far as other accessories are concerned. So basically these Avial engines never took off. Also these engines had some problems, like after 30 or 40,000 kilometers you need to place the cams. The cams were having problems, so as with the pinions, as well as it had problems in the clutch system, and just it was the poor workmanship which led to the demise of this Avial engine very soon. But after those manufacturing defects were taken care of, they went fabulous. And basically this engine is called a lean burn engine, so in a way it uses very less amount of fuel to burn into the combustion chamber, which was touted to be one of the most fuel efficient bike. uh, but yeah, for the sake of it, it didn't meant much to the public as lean burn or Avial engine or something is concerned. So meet this gentleman Siddharth Lal, which made a terrific and fantabulous comeback in the Royal Enfield segment, motorcycling segment, by bringing up the unit construction engine, which is so popular that 10-12 years are on, but still we are observing that engine in the BS6 avatar. So by virtue of him, the very first motorcycle came into the market with the unit construction engine was the Royal Enfield Bullet Classic. Back in the day it was called as Bullet Classic. Now we call it as just Classic. So the above motorcycle what you're observing is a 499cc unit construction twin spark electronically fuel injected 5-speed motorcycle. So what different is with the unit construction or the AVL or the cast iron engine block? As you know, in the older engines, the engine block and the gearbox are two separate entities. They are being fixed together via a clutch and a primary chain drive, and by that means the motorcycle completes a full powertrain package. So in this, as the name suggests, unit construction engine, the separate split entities were now merged together. The gearbox, the clutch, everything is now being in a single monotonous unit, but same overhead valve construction with a primary chain drive system is still persistent. And in many motorcycles, like if you take consider of Harley Davidson motorcycles or Indian motorcycles, they still have this type of setup with a primary chain drive system, but most of them are now being unit construction engines. But so far as Harley Davidson are concerned, I don't think they are still using separate entities, like the engine is separate and the gearbox is separate. So that is the difference between the unit construction engine and the AVL or cast iron engine blocks. As well as it came up with a very efficient electric start system, and it was for the first time that Royal Enfield introduced this engine with automatic decompression system. So what happens is, when you are having that automatic decompression system in the exhaust cam, it eliminates the usage of manually turning on the decompression system in order to start the motorcycle. So the moment you just put your foot on the kickstarter, it automatically, the starting of this motorcycle is very easier now. Another thing, in AVL engines, it was the very first time that capacitive discharge ignition system was launched. So somehow it eliminated the usage of batteries, in a way like if your batteries are dead, but still you can start your motorcycles. But in these motorcycles, in the unit construction engines, transistorized coil ignition system were introduced. So TCI system, as name suggests, it uses transistors. So actually it needs a charged battery to operate its ignition systems. Without a battery, it necessarily doesn't start. But again, there are different debates regarding this ignition system, whether you need an alternator current or you simply need a battery constant voltage to start the motorcycle through TCI ignition systems. because in many videos like in NCR motorcycles, the person has made a system, a rectifier regulator. And when you fix that, it's a plug and play system. It actually eliminates the usage of battery. So if you don't have your battery, with his setup, the motorcycle will start. So it's a debatable thing, but somehow with these ignition systems and all aluminium construction with twin spark ignition setups, and in 500cc variants we are getting electronic fuel injection as well as the automatic decompression systems eliminating manual decompressing. The engine was fantastic. Fuel economy, many say that it showed around 50 to 52 kilometers per liter, and in some cases that figure is true, because I possess a standard 350 with a unit construction engine, and with that stock setup it actually delivers you around 50 to 51 kmpl. So along with that, these were some of the models. And again, if you see this motorcycle, the 535 Continental GT, the Royal Enfield is one of the most advanced and one of the most refined unit construction engines. The engine was mounted on its frame through rubber gaiters and all that, so that it can minimize the vibration which will be tingling around your handlebars. So this 535cc engine was about to produce 30 horsepower with 45 Nm of torque, electronic fuel injection system which was performance tuned, Öhlins rear shock absorbers with Pirelli Durasport tires, and a very throaty exhaust system which gives you a very good exhaust note. And believe me, I have ridden this motorcycle. This motorcycle never vibrates at all, and its top speed is around 160 to, not 160, perhaps 150 to 155 kilometers per hour. I have tested it. So one of the most fastest 535cc unit construction engine, and it's a fantastic engine to be said about. And of course, it is performance tuned, so definitely you will get that. But though it's a cafe racer, for the Indian market it doesn't make a sense, because it is very impractical. Because at the time when you have to take your motorcycle to sabzi mandi and you are buying vegetables and you have to hook your bag up on your motorcycle, there is no space in the motorcycle to use that. And for fat people like us, it is a real pain in the butt to ride the motorcycles for hours together. So in that sense, it is a motorcycle for the pretty Sunday rides or for the circuit rides. So it's a lifestyle product. And coming up to the Himalayan motorcycle, Royal Enfield launched this Himalayan motorcycle back in 2016 as an off-roader variant of Royal Enfield motorcycles. And this motorcycle is the very first motorcycle from Royal Enfield to house an overhead cam valve train system, unlike push rod system in unit construction engines. To say about its specifications, 411 cc's, 24.5 brake horsepower, 27 to 28 Nm of torque, with 19-inch front wheels and 18-inch or 17-inch rear wheels. It had inbuilt hazard warning lamps, and it was supposed to be built for the off-roading enthusiasts to take this motorcycle in the motocross or cross-country roads. And yeah, this is pretty much basic about this motorcycle. The performance of this motorcycle is pretty good, but somehow its build quality issues are a bit to be addressed. Let's see what happens. And in 2017, finally we witnessed the 650cc twin cylinder motorcycles from Royal Enfield. The left hand side one is, as we know, it is called Interceptor 650, and left hand side is called the Continental GT 650. To say about the specifications, 649cc twin cylinder single overhead cam, 4 valves, 45 brake horsepower, 52 or 53 Newton meter of torque, and again with a very huge clutch on the right hand side of the motorcycle with twin exhaust systems. And the crank angle is being deemed to 270 degree, which somehow gives you a good exhaust note of a V-twin Harley Davidson or some sort of like that. And with such a small price tag, getting a twin cylinder 650cc motorcycle is really what you need in the current scenario. So far as fuel economy is concerned, 25 kilometers per liter for this of a motorcycle is pretty decent if you think about. Now, if we talk about this motorcycle, it is called the Royal Enfield Meteor. Royal Enfield has said as of 2020 this motorcycle will be launched in the end of 2020, but let's say the pandemic has, you know, tortured us a lot, and so far as buying new motorcycles are concerned, it's another ball game. But still, I think this motorcycle will gain a tremendous response. If you see at the engine, it is pretty much that of a 650cc twin engine, and there is a catch. It is no more a push shot system. It is the same single overhead cam system what you get in Himalayan or the 650cc twins. So let's see what happens. This motorcycle is specification, if I talk about, people say that it's a 349cc engine with 23 to 25 brake horsepower. Still it is, you know, not known because it's in test phase. So let's see what happens. But many say that it is a replacement of the current generation Thunderbird series. But the particular motorcycle what you're observing here is basically a replacement of the classic series of motorcycle. But God knows whether we can get a replacement of this classic series of motorcycle, because we have already reached a phase that we are getting unit construction engine with BS6 emission norms. So with that, I think I have covered up the most of the 4-stroke, and from starting from the basic 349cc or 500cc cast iron blocks to the current generation unit construction engine and the upcoming 4-stroke motorcycles to come in the Royal Enfield stable. So far as the motorcycles are concerned, as of BS6 emission norms, the very basic motorcycle or the standard 350 costs you from something like from 1.5 lakhs to 2.5 lakhs, not 2.5 lakhs, to 2.2 lakhs, I think, with all registration and all insurance taken into consideration. So basically nowadays the BS6 variant what we are getting is electronically fuel injector with single spark plug. The motorcycle's horsepower has been increased a bit. Previously it had 19.8 bhp, now it is somehow close to 20 bhp. Acceleration and refinement of the current generation BS6 UCE engine has been tuned a bit, so that now people are experiencing a bit of more thump from the exhaust note, and the refinement, the ride quality has been increased a bit. But necessarily it is the same motorcycle, and yes, safety features like dual channel ABS has been standardized amongst all variants except for those standard variants of Bullet motorcycle series, and that too perhaps due to government regulation. Otherwise I don't think ABS would have come up with this motorcycle range. But anyways, wait for the part 3 of this video, where I will be talking about the other variants of Royal Enfield motorcycles. Like they had also produced mopeds and Zundap series of German motorcycles, 2-strokes, as well as commercial vehicle segment, and some of the stationary engines and all that we will be talking about in the part 3. So yes, that's all about it. Like this video, share this video. If you are disliking this video, please comment down below what made you dislike this video, and till then wait for the part 3 of this video. We will be talking a lot about that. So with that note, thank you very much.